Hey guys, welcome to the Editing Bard, the channel that brings you writing tips that make sense. Today I actually have the privilege of introducing you to one of my good friends, Verity Buchanan. She is an author who is going to be having her first book, The Journey, published and released on October 1st. And she was kind enough to allow me to do an interview with her. It was a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to being able to share it with you guys. I've been doing an ARC read of her book for the last month or so, and it's just absolutely fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. So we're gonna dive into the introduction, and then I'll be back at the end to tell you where you can purchase it. First off, thank you for doing the interview. Super excited to be able to do that.
Excited to be here as well.
So to start off, why don't you give a little bit of backstory about yourself, and then I'll dive into the questions.
Okay, so I'm Verity Buchanan. I've been writing since I was about 6 years old, and I enjoy writing fantasy, and the Harrison series is basically a fantasy series, young adults, that focuses heavily on family relationships and small, ordinary people who don't have a lot of influence in the big scheme of things, but their stories are still important.
Yeah, I love that. I've been doing the review for the book, and I've been really enjoying it so far. It's been a lot of fun. I love the depth and the richness that you have with those characters.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, so first question that I have for you, and for the viewers that are watching this, Verity does not know what I'm going to be asking her, and so keep it on.
It's all impromptu.
It's all impromptu. No rehearsal here. So you had your story on Wattpad for a long time.
Yes.
And that's how we met.
Yep.
So do you think that helped you get to where you are now with the publishing of your book?
I would say, well, it definitely helped on one level because the person who introduced me to the publishing company that I'm now working with actually was somebody I met through Wattpad. If I hadn't met her through Wattpad, well, I probably wouldn't have discovered my publishing company. She's a go-getter, and she was just wanting me to get published, so she kept sending me these people she came up with. So yeah, and Wattpad also helped because it helped me discover how to a little bit of how to market, how to work with people, and do networking and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then how long did you have it up on Wattpad? Because I remember by the time that I got around to reading it, it was just like, hey, you guys got like 10 days. And I was like, oh crap.
Yeah, I had it up on Wattpad when I was editing editing second draft from about September 2016 till January 2017. Then I took it off for a brief time and put it back up in October 2017. And it stayed up till May of next year. So yeah, to May 2018 was when I finally took it down. And yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Next question is, why do you love writing, and what is it that keeps you going?
Okay, so that's an awesome question. Thank you for asking. I love writing because of the characters. I've always been a person who loves to connect with people, and reading is great because you can connect with these characters, and writing's the same way, kind of. You just get to know people, you get inside their head, you know what makes them tick, and you just get to experience their journeys for yourself. The emotion that sweeps me up in writing is whatever the characters are feeling.
Yeah, and what's your process when you're like coming up with the characters? Like, do you kind of plan them out, or is it more of just like, I have no idea what's going to happen, we're just gonna
Well, it's kind of more of the latter. because when I first dive in, I let them do whatever they want to do, but eventually I figure out things as I go along about them. Like they just kind of show themselves to me. It seems like
Yeah.
the more you talk to them, the more you write them, the more you get to know them. And
Yeah. So cool. So this is another question that I have been particularly interested in when it comes to your story is like, what made you tackle building a language system? I was like, 'cause, like that's not an easy thing to do. There's a reason why
it was
Tolkien did it and like very few other people do it.
yeah, I mean, it was 100% the fact that Tolkien did it. I was like, well, if he did it, so can I. I'm going to make an epic fantasy series. That was back when I was wanting to write something called The Black King of Isidore, which is nowhere near anything what the Karastan series is. But yeah, it was just like, Tolkien made a language. I'm going to make a language. It's obvious. I knew nothing of what I was getting into, of course. And I was 11 years old at the time,
Right.
and I'd only like taken a little bit of Latin like for 6 months when I was 5 or something. Anyway, I took some more Latin later on in high school, and that helped cement like the principles of what goes into a language. And I also loved, of course, reading about Tolkien, so I would read up stuff about how he built his languages. And yeah.
And so how many languages do you have total in your book? Because if I remember correctly, it was somewhere like 3 or 4.
Okay, so there are like 3 or 4 more developed languages. There are
Okay.
16 languages in total that we try to have a base of like at least 10 to 20 vocabulary words for, if you know what I mean.
Wow. Yeah.
And then, yeah, the 3 or 4 are ones that we've had more of grammar building and sentence structure.
Gotcha. And kind of like, how did those languages like come into play in like how many of those do we actually see in the journey to start off with?
Okay, so in the journey, Theridonian is like kind of the Latin of Ligeia. It's the language that the noblemen speak. It's not as known among a lot of countries, but yeah, in various countries, the nobles will learn it. And then, so yeah, when they're in Rodron later on, you'll hear some little language tidbit kind of where I had fun with just talking about a certain meaning in a word of Theridonian. I don't know if there's much about Rodronian words themselves, although they actually pass through Rodron. So you'll see Rodronian names,
Okay.
and that's another Rodronian is another one of the languages that we spent more time working on and building up.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And how many countries are there? Because I've seen the sketches of some of the maps, but I don't think I've seen like the full
So
world.
yeah, there's I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. There's like between 12 and 15 countries, a couple more tribal groups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's a fairly big world. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's it's definitely large.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah, I can imagine keeping it all straight. You've built this world over the course of, you said you started writing it when you were 11? And
well, that was when I started writing the epic fantasy that kind of fizzled out and didn't do anything.
okay.
But yeah, I guess in the sense it also what Ligeia is now also started when I was 11 because we were doing that Middle Earth parody then.
Gotcha. And that's what kind of the journey morphed
That's what it
from.
morphed into gradually over time. It wasn't until like 2014 that I actually started realizing we are going somewhere with this world. This
Yeah.
is big stuff.
Awesome. That's so cool. So being fantasy, YA, what books inspired you to kind of get into writing into or drew you to fantasy, and that just you kind of pull from for your writing?
Okay, so definitely Tolkien was what got me into fantasy, because before that I had mostly read like mysteries and historical fiction and stuff. I still have a very abiding love for historical fiction because I think it's an amazing genre. But yeah, Tolkien kind of shot me off in the deep end of fantasy. And so then what I draw on for my writing like style, I've been more heavily influenced by an actual historical fiction author called Rosemary Sutcliffe. That's the person I'd say I most closely am inspired by style in. But I've also moved away more from that. You can see more of her influence in the journey than in my later works.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, because I know in the journey it has this very rich classical feel that,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is missing from a lot of books nowadays. It's,
Uh-huh.
because I grew up. I mean, I read The Fellowship of the Ring when I was 10, and so that is what built up my base for and my love for
Yeah.
world building and fantasy. But I try and incorporate those classics, that classic feel with my writing. And I very much appreciate the style that you have where you show so much of that, because there's a
Yeah,
lot of richness to that.
that's great. I'm glad you like it, because I mean, yeah, it's continues kind of like that similar style. My style doesn't actually like change radically over the course of the series, but I think it matures a little bit, if you know what I mean. It kind of comes into its own feel a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Very
I'm glad you're enjoying the fluff classic feel.
Yeah. No, I think we need people to appreciate the classics and know where we've come from in writing,
Yeah,
and then take
definitely.
that and let it inspire us now. Because like no one wants Twilight. It's just there's no one wants that. Just a cart dumpster fire is what that is. um so what has been the most challenging part of publishing? Because like I know that with so many people, like with the people that I work with for indie authors, they're trying to go a self-publishing route, and it can be more expensive.
Yeah.
And but traditional publishing comes with its own set of challenges. What have been some of the big challenges that you've kind of seen going through this process?
Well, it was a very interesting and different working with an editor, a professional editor, because um you kind of I've never had anybody editing my work before, really. So it was difficult to work with another person over my story at first and be like, okay, do I really have to change this? Maybe I do have to change this, maybe I want to keep this. Yeah, trying to figure out how to work with another person and determine what's actually my voice and what's best cut out.
Yeah.
But and yeah, other than that, the main difficult thing has been just trying to juggle all this this big hump of trying to market stuff, because
Sure.
marketing I've had to do a lot of stuff all in one year. It seems like got a Facebook page, got an Instagram, was trying to figure out how to use them, then I got a website, got all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of stuff that I think authors don't tend to think about going into this, is that
Yeah.
that you have to have this platform in which to even tell people about your book, because simply just getting it published isn't enough. You have to let people
Yeah.
know that it's out there.
Definitely. Yeah, it's just like my words are going to go out in the world into the world now. Yay! Oh wait, I have to get them out there.
You're right.
No, I thought I just got them out there.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen a lot of that, when I'm talking with clients or other authors that have gone through, both sides of the publishing.
Yeah.
They are just like, I didn't realize that it was going to be this much work. And I mean, essentially, you're kind of starting your own small business, and the book
Yeah.
is your
It's
business.
that's very much what it is. Like,
What has been like the biggest benefit of going or what I say what drew you to traditional publishing versus trying to go a self-publishing route?
Yeah, I was always interested in traditional more than self-publishing because I was aware of the fact that obviously it was going to get a bigger outreach than self-publishing would, but I also knew it was going to be a lot harder to get my book accepted by somebody if I was going to go the traditional publishing route. I figured that was worth it, worth the toughness it would take, because I wanted to have more of a base for my book
Sure.
to stand on, because I didn't think I had the wherewithal, the base myself to go out and do self-publishing.
Gotcha.
I
And
did consider it briefly, like right before I got accepted. I was thinking, well, I got a little base on Wattpad. Maybe if I actually started to grow that, I could go self-publish. But I got accepted by a traditional publisher, so that was
yeah,
how it worked out.
yeah, and it's worked out great for you, which is so
Yeah,
fantastic. Um, when you were doing the query letters for agents,
yeah.
um, was there like what was kind of like the process with that? Was it difficult? Because I mean, some people they try for years and never get one. You know,
Yeah, I am a very I'm very interested in trying to sell myself as well as possible with people. So like I would try to personalize everything I sent out as specifically as I could to the person's specifications. And so yeah, I did not actually send out very many queries, maybe 15 to 20 when I was originally querying, if that much, because I was working very hard to find agents that fit with what I was trying to um, pitch,
hmm,
and I worked very hard to tailor my queries to those agents so that hopefully they would accept them. So yeah, it was a draining process, honestly.
yeah, I can imagine. And so it sounds like instead of just kind of just throwing out query letters just to everyone and everyone, you were much
Yeah, they
more
say you're supposed to.
selective.
Yeah, they say you're supposed to do that, but I could never do mass querying. It was just not what my brain would put up with.
Yeah, well, and I mean, just thinking, if you're thinking about it from, again, that business perspective, not everyone is going to be a potential client, just
Yeah,
everybody's going to buy the book, but those people that love that style of book, those are the types of
yeah,
people that you want to reach. And
yeah,
it makes sense
exactly.
that you would be very selective because you're really trying to find someone who's going to fit you.
Yeah,
And
find the audience.
yeah, exactly. So I think that's great advice for other authors that are looking to do the traditional route of instead of just being, throwing out to everyone, just being very purposeful and intentional with it.
Yeah.
Could be much
And
more.
I mean, some people can go the mass route and they'll just send it out to anybody and everybody, and they don't worry about if it's not up to the specifications because they'll know that one or two of them is going to hit it. And
Right.
I mean, I figure that's another way of doing it, and if that works for you, then you can do it that way. It's just not what I'm interested in doing.
Yeah. um, all right. So two more quick questions. So can you give
Okay.
any hints about any future books coming?
Okay, so yeah, there are 3 more books in the Karaston series, and I hope to publish all of those through Ambassador International, my publishing company. They have shown interest in the sequel, and I'll be sending that into them soon, hopefully, for them to look over.
Awesome.
So yeah,
And where does book two kind of pick up with the Thorns
it
of the
picks up very shortly after the journey finishes, like just less than 2 weeks, actually, I think.
Oh wow. Okay.
So
Very
yeah,
cool.
but it starts out following a very, very different plot line. Like you'll see the same characters, but the mood of the story, the subtle themes of the story will be different.
Cool. Very cool. All right. And the last question is really just we know that the book comes out on October 1st, and there will be a link down in the show notes for anybody who wants to go and purchase it. I'll also have links to all of Verity's social media pages and website. But what is some that golden nugget of advice that you could give future authors out there? Because one of the cool things that we get to experience as authors and as writers, and now you as a published author, is we get to be someone else's inspiration, and we're just kind of passing on that torch. So what torch could you pass on to somebody who's looking at doing this and putting themselves through the torment of writing a book?
So yeah, one of the things I think is very important is to not seek out criticism too early on in your writing career. Because I did not have that, and I think when I was first starting out writing fiction on my own as a kid, I think that was very important because it let me grow at my own pace. It let me continue reading and figuring out more of how a story worked and was put together, and just the reading and the writing on my own helped me develop my style and know where I was going with my story before someone else saw it. Because if someone else starts critiquing your story, they might not be able to see the same vision you have. And if you don't know what your own vision is, then somebody else could accidentally tear it apart by criticizing your work before you, and you won't be able to say, no, that's not what I want, because you won't even realize yet what you are as a writer.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic advice, and I try and give that same thing to young authors and other people. So thank you so much for sharing, because I think so many people need to hear that. So thank you so much, Verity, for allowing me to do the interview. Super appreciate it, and I'm super excited about your book and helping you kind of get the word out there about the journey.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I was very happy to be here.
Yeah,
talk about it. They're great questions.
Yeah, thank you. And you did great, considering that you had like no prep time.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to find your book, aside from the link that will be down in the show notes, where can they find it?
So you're linking to Amazon pre-order, is that what you're doing? Yeah.
Yes.
It's also on Barnes & Noble's website. It's on Kobo, and it's on christianbook.com, and I'm not sure if it's like up for sale on any other places yet, but those are the main things I can think of.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Verity, and we wish you all of the success with this book, and looking forward to book 2 when it comes out. That was just a blast, and that was my first time actually having an interview with another author, coming up with different questions and stuff. So definitely a learning experience for me, but a ton of fun, and I was so glad that Verity was able to join me and was open for even doing it. So if you guys are wanting to pick up a copy of The Journey for yourselves, I have posted a link down in the show notes for you to make it as easy as possible. And again, it is going to be releasing October 1st. So just a few short days after this video goes up. So make sure that you get it pre-ordered. So as soon as it hits stores, you guys are going to be able to enjoy it for yourselves. All right, guys, until next time, take care.